Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the session on water savings in thermal power stations without charging by Dr. Sehra, President, CST Associates. Dr. Jagjit Singh Sehra is a science graduate and PDBA from the 1980s. He is also honored with doctorate degree in the field of water and energy. He has served many companies involved in designing and manufacturing related equipment. This is for both domestic and international. He has vast experience of 37 years in the field of thermal energy. He is known face in the industry and works very close with many companies like NTPC, Bell, Maruti Suzuki, CAT, Perkins, Chemiflaw, PDO, Cummins, just to name a few. Dr. Singh's life was moved by two personalities. One, Sikh's first Guru Nanak Ji, and other Dr. Abdul Kalam, the ex-president of India. According to Dr. Sehra, the time has come when we need to blend laws of physics and laws of nature and give solutions to the world on how to save water and air. Humans are searching for life on other planets. The first thing they look for are water and air. But on our own planet, we are misusing both. Everyone on this planet is for a short span. We need to educate the people to save the natural resources they have that have been given to us for free. As a responsible citizens of the global village, it is everyone's responsibility to take care of these natural resources and hand over a clean environment for the next generation. On this thought, I request Dr. Sehra to start with his presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Deepak. Good afternoon, friends. Deepak has already introduced who I am and what I am doing, and thanks very much, Deepak, for that. And giving in short what I think the environment should be. See, what has happened is that we have really misused the water, basically, and now the time has come when we are already on the verge of losing the environment and going to a zone where the earth will not come back in the same zone. So it is important for all the industries to save water and use water very sensibly. So for this one, like you said that law of nature and law of science. So now, especially after COVID, we have to do a blending of both. And now to do the blending of both, first we need to understand that what is the problem actually happening with the people, especially the farmers. See, the first right on the water was farmers, and the second right is for the industry. So uh, to give you an idea, or to all my friends, I would like to share a small video which has been made by an NGO, showing that how farmers are suffering. It's a 5-minute video, and then we can discuss about the solutions, what we can give to the industry, how we can save millions of gallons of water, which is especially being used and wasted in the thermal power stations. This is what I have worked for. One second, I will just share the video. Not every child is lucky like Champa. There are many children in the country whose father will not return home today. This is a very sad story of our farmers. On one side, we have such a big problem of water not available to the farmers. And on another side, huge amount of water gets evaporated. This is because of open cycle cooling towers, which have been installed in air conditioning and power industry. Now let's unlock the method by which we can save 80% of the water used in open cycle cooling towers. The main focus of today's discussion is saving water used in cooling towers of thermal power plants. Thank you very much. I hope everybody likes and understand the fear which the children of farmers are going through. Seeing this kind of video and this kind of work on internet moved me to go into the area where is the problem and where millions and millions of gallon water is being wasted. So I went to a lot of power plants and then studied what is making them to use so much water. So I did a lot of research work and found out a solution which can give a solution to the world as well as for the thermal power plants. And this is a basically techno-commercial idea from where we have the technology also, we have funding also available, and the idea is that the amount of water which is being wasted by thermal power plant, and if it is being saved, it will generate 3,300 crore rupees to the farmers, and which is a lot much money, and there will be prosperity with that kind of money. I now give my idea what is how we can save this water. So I have a small, I would like to share that one with everybody here. Where do I go? So this is a presentation which says save 80% of the water by replacing open cycle cooling towers by adiabatic cooling towers. First of all, we have to understand that how the water is getting wasted in the thermal power stations. So this is a very, very basic diagram of showing that how a thermal power plant is working. See, we have a fuel which is in the form of coal, and then there is a air. So this is mixed and is being fed to the boiler. In the boiler, we have a water which gets converted into the steam. So the fuel which is entering here, it transmits its energy to the boiler, and all the rest of the waste energy goes to the chimney in the form of a stack. And this boiler generates steam at a high pressure, which drives a turbine. And turbine is connected with the electrical generator, which produces electricity and give it to the grid. So now once the steam comes out, it is at a very low pressure. It is at almost like a 0.6 bar. Sometimes it depends on kind of turbine and manufacturer. So different manufacturers have different designs and how much energy is being utilized there. So they almost all get like a 0.3 to 0.6 bar as a steam pressure, but the temperature is almost all like 60 degrees centigrade. So this steam cannot be taken back to the boiler unless until it gets condensed, So for that, normally shell and tube heat exchangers are being used in the power plant, where the steam enters the shell and tube on the shell side, and on the tube side, we get, there's a pump which circulates the water inside the shell and tube heat exchanger, which goes to the cooling tower, sprays the water there, and the cold water comes at 32 degrees centigrade. So now this is the point where we get a lot of evaporation of the water is there, And the second system is in countries where ambient temperature is low, people use air cooled condensers. The process is same. Instead of steam going to the cooling tower, it goes to the air cooled condenser. So from the air cooled condenser, it condenses the steam and it goes back to the vacuum section, and from the vacuum chamber, it goes to the feed pump and then back to the boiler. And the cold air, which is being sucked by these fans, and they transmit the heat, and this is the process which works over there. We will discuss all these methods in detail in the coming slides. So to understand how much water is being used in Indian industry, so we have as per July 2020, India has a total thermal installation capacity of 231.45 gigawatts. Almost 86% of thermal power is obtained from coal and rest from lignite, diesel, and gas. Different plants in India have different water consumption data, but as a thumb rule, it is estimated that 2.9 cubic meter of water evaporates per megawatt. So the doing the production of 1000 megawatt, we need 2,900 cubic meter of water every hour, which is a lot and huge. So to give to estimate what will be the total power water requirement in 1 year. So I designed this. I took this Delhi NCT map and then converted into a tank. Let's say the Delhi area is 1448 square kilometer, the Delhi area. And if we built a wall of 9.3 feet high on all sides and fill it with the water, so this is the kind of water we need every year, you know. And with if we go and use go for adiabatic technology, we only need 20% of this water, and this water 20% of water can be either, you know, condensed from the atmosphere, or it can be, you know, used from the municipality waste or any other. So basically we will not require any kind of outside water to run these thermal power stations. So there are two type of cooling systems in a power plant. One is air cooled, another is water cooled. So types of cooling tower, which in a which let's discuss first the air cooled. So the benefit of the air cooled condensers are there is no water consumption, save fan power if variable fan speed is used. Means if we install a VFD, variable frequency drive, on the fans, so we get a reduction of the uh, uh, air volume, and it ultimately saves the power at the low ambient temperature. And limitations are requires large place or large area, duration of plant in case ambient goes higher than the designed ambient temperature. So means if we have designed the ambient, these air cooled condenser at, let's say, 40 degrees centigrade or 45 degrees centigrade, and somehow, you know, with the global warming, when ambient temperatures are going higher, like 48 degrees centigrade, 49 degrees centigrade, or sometime with the short cycling and extra heat on the power plant, it may go up to like 50 degrees centigrade also. So at that time, you know, there is a duration of the plant occur. They have to reduce the steam to, you know, compensate that kind of a surface area. So third is that it has to be mounted on a height, and higher investment cost is there. Then in the normal, you know, what is the problem with the ACC? In normal cases, steam outlet pressure from the turbine is zero point 0.6 bar. The density of the steam at this point is 0.366 kg per cubic meter. Ambient air temperature at 45 degree centigrade, the density is 1.1 kg per cubic meter. So try to understand two things, you know. We have almost all air on the both sides. The steam is there, which is in the form of a air only. It's a dense air, and the air on the outside is also air. So we are all like trying to, you know, cool air with the air. So we need definitely we need a very big area, you know. So that because of the density difference is not there. Uh, in between the two streams, there is a metal resistance which is in the form of a coil material. See, these are the coil materials, basically, which is aluminum fins and carbon steel tubes. So steam is flowing inside and the air is blowing outside. So there is a metal resistance which is going to occur, you know. So we will discuss more of metal resistance in the coming slides. So we have basically two kinds of fin tubes in the air-cooled heat exchangers, which is like condensers. And one is called excluded aluminum fin tube, and another is called single row tubes. In the both cases, the steam flows inside the tubes and the air blows outside the fins. And in the both cases, uh, tube material is carbon steel and fin material is aluminum. This is a type of fin tube which has been used for many years, and basically typically heat exchangers, you know, they have a 25.4 mm as OD of the tube, and 6.35 millimeter is the height of these fins, you know. And this is made from the by the exclusion process, you know. and the thickness of these tube is about 3 to 4 millimeter, and the fin is 1.1 to 1.5 material. So what happens is when the steam enters here, so and the air is blowing from outside, so there is a big metal resistance, because of the steam has to heat the pipe first, and then it has to transmit that heat to the fins, and the air which is blowing outside, it has to dissipate that kind of heat. So there is a this is the reason that in these excluded fin tubes are installed in like a 3 row, 4 row, 5 row, 6 row, something like that. So to overcome the metal resistance, the single tube concept was introduced. So this is the one. So what happens is this is a single tube, and the air blows from here to here, and the steam goes from this side to another side, and the thickness of the tube is kept like 1 to 1.5 millimeter, and this is rolled, and then it's a aluminum coated sheet, and both aluminum fins and uh, both the aluminum fins and the tubes are kept in a furnace, and then the aluminum inside the furnace melts with the there is a brazing material over here, and this becomes an integral part. It's a good design, and basically lot many heat exchanger manufacturers are going for this kind of technology, because there is a less air side pressure, liquid side sorry steam side pressure drop, and B, there is a less air side pressure drop also. So we save on the power, and we get a better efficiency compared to the individual fin tube. So what happens in the case of high ambient? Why the heat exchangers or air-cooled condensers have a limitation at higher temperature? See, there is a universal equation. It's a heat load, which is equal to the heat transfer coefficient into the surface area into LMTD. And we are all engineers. We know all these equations. We use it every day in our life, And now the problem is now steam comes out at a constant temperature from the turbine. See, there is a 60 to 65 degree temperature is there. The variation is ambient temperature. Ambient temperature, keeps on changing every hour, like in 8,760 hour in a year. No temperature profile will be same every day, There will be average, people are taking like 40 or 45, sometimes humidity is more, sometimes humidity is less, sometimes temperature, dry bulb temperature is more, sometimes dry bulb temperature is less. So there is a complete variation in every hour. So what happens is, so this affects the LMTD. So LMTD, when we have a lower ambient temperature, so this LMTD goes higher. When this goes higher, so our heat transfer area is sufficient, because this heat transfer coefficient is a coefficient which depends on three things. One is what is the velocity of steam inside the heat exchanger. A. B is what is the airflow velocity on the outside heat exchanger, and C is basically what is the metallurgy, and what kind of a fin tube arrangement we are using. So there is a constant U factor is there. Now what happens is, when in a case of a lower ambient temperature, when our this LMTD goes higher and surface area is fixed, so we have an option to change this U factor. U factor can be changed by reducing the fan speed, so that at a lower ambient temperature we save on the energy also, and once this crosses design temperature, let's say we have designed a heat exchanger at 45 degrees centigrade. So at 45 degrees centigrade, our LMTD is balanced out with the heat load. So let's say the temperature goes like 45 or 50 degrees centigrade. At that time, LMTD becomes lower. So lower means there is a heat, demand of surface for the more surface area, but this is already fixed. So we have an option of increasing the air volume. So even if we increase the air volume and then we are not able to cater that kind of heat load, so the only option left is to reduce the steam from IGV wall. And once that steam is reduced, so the heat load comes down. Once the heat load comes down, which matches the surface area, so it comes down as a it gives you a balance of plant. But at that time we are losing a great amount of power also, because every minute, every second, every hour we have to the power is generated and the billing is being done. So at that point we lose a lot of power and money also. That's why ACC in India is it will work. It is very difficult for ACC to work, because of the high ambient temperature. So the option left is basically using adiabatic coolers, and then the another type of air cooled condensers are like Hailer system. In a Hailer system, the coils, instead of going like V shape like this one, so they install the coils like this. And there is no fan over here. So with the differential pressure, the air blows over these fin tube coils, and then the steam is condensed. So the benefit is there is no water consumption, because it's a completely air cooled system. And secondly, no water means no power also. There is no fan. There is no fan means no power. Sorry. So there is no fan, no power. And if fan is not there, there is no noise level also. No mechanical moving equipment means it is maintenance free. There are no motors, no fans, no gearboxes, no belt, no speed increaser, no shaft. So we are this is a very good system. And being in a circle like pi d, it requires a limited area. Not like and then we don't have to deal with the heights that the fans are installed on the top, and then the repair is to be done and maintenance is to be carried out. And some companies, what they are doing is to reduce this height. They install the power fans on this side, all the periphery of this circle, and to get that kind of a heat transfer. But the limitation is the same one. Duration of a plant in case ambient goes higher than the design ambient temperature. And secondly, investment cost is quite high on these ACCs. So let's now discuss about the open cycle natural draft cooling tower. So this is a cooling tower which many power plants in India are having it. It's like a bottle shape structure made up of concrete. And basically what happens is when hot water enters this area, so there are nozzles which spray water over the fills. And because of the differential pressure, the air is being sucked from the sides of the cooling tower, and this blows over the fills. And finally there are drift eliminator to avoid water droplets to go out. But on the other end, there is a constant evaporation which keeps on going, in the same ratio of 2.9 cubic meter of water every hour per megawatt. And so we can have a quick look on the benefits and limitations. So the benefit is there is no power consumption, good where water is freely available. See what happened is in India when we got independence, and at that time there was no shortage of water. It is actually no shortage of. It's not the no shortage of water. Basically, there were no there were very less power plants which were using the river water, and it was a good option, because it was a cheap to to build these cooling towers. and not much technology was involved because of the simple and easy system, and that's why we went in this kind of system, so that at that time water was freely available. And now the scenario is different, because now what has happened is we are already, the population of the country has gone in many folds, and water has really become short. The water was meant for the farmers, but we have used in the power plants. And then, low investment cost compared to other technologies. Now, this requires less area also because of the height. Limitation is water evaporates constantly, frequent choking of nozzles. Fills needs to be changed very frequently. And then then some companies went into the open cycle forced draft cooling tower. In a forced draft cooling tower, the cooling tower is almost all the same. Concept is same. The only difference is that we are spraying the water on the fills, and the fan is on the top, and it draws the air, which basically maintains a liquid and gas ratio of 1.5, and it cools the water. And the benefit is it is compact in size, because we are using a different LG ratio, and requires less space and low investment. The limitation is huge water again gets evaporated constantly, frequent choking of nozzles, and fill needs to be replaced every year, or every 6 months. So then another one is a closed circuit forced draft cooling tower. In this one, instead of water going exposed direct to the atmosphere, so we have a coil inside, which can be of a galvanized steel or a stainless steel or whatever material some manufacturers are using, and basically it is a closed loop. One side the shell and tube heat exchanger is there, and the pump is there, so it the water flows inside the heat exchanger, and the water inside the cooling tower is drawn by a pump, and then it sprays over the closed circuit heat exchanger, and it cools the water. Now the benefit is least maintenance for shell and tube steam condensers. See, this both going in a closed circuit, the water is not exposed, so scale formation chances are quite less, and the maintenance required is very, very less, all the maintenance required will be on this side of a fin tube, where the scale formation will be there. But then these panels can be opened, and then it can be these coils can be cleaned, But then on the other side, the turbine heat exchanger, the condenser on the turbine heat exchanger that need not to be changed, And then, water evaporates. Limitation is water evaporate constantly, frequent choking of nozzles, fill needs to be changed frequently. Power consumption is more compared to the open cycle cooling tower because of the fans available, And then we have a closed natural draft, in some cases I've seen in the world that they have used a fanless system, but as a closed one, The system is same as compared to the forced draft, and this is a natural draft, The benefit is least maintenance for shell and tube heat exchanger, shell and tube steam condenser, and no power consumption due to the fans. See, there is no fan, no power. Limitations are water evaporates constantly, and frequently choking of nozzles. Fill needs to be changed frequently. So now let's come to the dry and adiabatic cooling systems. So working of drying and let's understand the working of dry and adiabatic cooling system. See, basically, adiabatic cooling tower is nothing but extended form of a dry cooler. And dry cooler is basically a fin tube heat exchanger, where these fin tube heat exchanger is installed in a V shape, and it's a sheet metal enclosure and the air which blows over here dissipates carries the heat out, and the fan constantly dissipates heat. It's like a heat sink, and the material of the this heat exchanger can be aluminum fins or stainless steel fins or copper fins or cupronickel fins and with the heresite coating, where if we have to install this kind of a thing in a ship, and the principle is the water comes at 42 degrees centigrade, and the air is coming at 28 degrees centigrade, and the water goes out at 32 degrees centigrade. So there is a constant dissipation of the heat is there. But the problem in the dry cooler comes if when the ambient temperature goes then more than 28 degrees centigrade. Let's say, because at 28 degree air in and 32 degree air water out, our approach of the cooling is 4 degrees centigrade. The moment this temperature becomes like 29, 30, 31, 32, so these coolers will not be effective. Even we change from 28 to 29 degree centigrade, so we will require a very large surface area to avoid this one. So what we can do is we have these pads are there. It's like many companies are using Munter pads, and made up of basically paper, and then with a special coating. And some companies are using polypropylene pads, and basically which is very good for the power plants, because paper pads need a change after every 1 year or 2 years, or 3 years at the most. But polypropylene pads are really good. We have used in many applications, especially for the Middle East countries, where there is a constant dust storms are there. So with the dust storms, there is a big erosion on the paper if we use the paper pads. But if we use polypropylene, it can be taken out and clean and everything. So what happens is when we in the same thing, when 42 degree temperature is water temperature is going in, and our expected temperature is 32, and our ambient goes as 45 degrees centigrade. So what happens is it the water starts spraying on these pads, and it reduces the dry bulb temperature. See, what happens is when 45 degrees centigrade ambient temperature is there, so our expected humidity level will be almost all 29 degrees centigrade or 28 degrees centigrade, depending on, again, area to area and what kind of humidity is there. So let's say we have a 29 degrees centigrade is established on this point. So when 29 degree air, which is saturated, goes, passes over the fin surface heat exchanger, it drops down the water temperature from 42 to 32 degrees centigrade. So in our system, what happens is this is our main target, and we need to keep the eye all the time on this 32 degrees centigrade. All logic, everything has to work on that, which we will cover in the next slides. So this is the kind of dry coolers are there, and this is a basically adiabatic cooler where there are fills are there, and this is a special polypropylene material where the water is being sprayed. These are two different sites. So dry cooler benefit and application. Benefit is most beneficial when the process water temperature requires is more than ambient temperature. Normally, the approach is 3 to 4 degrees centigrade, which we already discussed in the last slides. Application is this is most suitable for HT and LT circuits of an engine. So if we have a engine, like a power plant which is running by a diesel or HFO or gas, so there are two different circuits. One is for the jacket cooling, other circuit is for the low temperature cooling, which is for the charger cooling and lube oil cooling. So in the lube oil cooling and charger cooling, we have to go close to ambient. Let's say if we are having a ambient temperature of 45 degrees centigrade, and with 3 or 4 degrees centigrade, So we will have a temperature of water outlet temperature of 48 to 49 degrees centigrade. So which is quite good for the turbocharger, The low, if we go a higher temperature, at that point the fuel consumption of that engine becomes more, because there is a, the density of the air will change. And the second is the jacket water temperature. Jacket water temperature is basically where all the pistons and other things are moving. And it has to be there, the temperature of that jacket has to be something like 80, 85 degrees centigrade or 90 degrees centigrade, again, depending on the manufacturer and this one. So there is no need for a, adiabatic application on these kind of coolers. So adiabatic cooling system benefits and application. Most beneficial is when the process water temperature is less than the ambient temperature. So typically is our cases for the thermal power stations, where we need to have 32, 33 degrees centigrade of the air water outlet temperature from the cooling tower. So this is basically, it's an application of 100% replacement of wet type cooling tower, but saving great amount of water. So how the logic is working for the dry and adiabatic cooler. See, what happens is we start the system, main water pump starts, which starts circulating in the heat exchanger. PLC reads what outlet temperature is there. Maybe when we start, it is like 25, 26, 27 degrees. It is close to ambient. So read water the water circulates for few hours, a few minutes. So what happens is the thermocouple will read. Will have a three kind of readings. So let's say our working temperature is 28 degrees, 38 degree temperature. 38 degree temperature is the requirement. If water outlet temperature is lower than set point of 38 degrees centigrade, so what will happen is it will reduce the fan power to save the energy. And once it will balance out where the air requirement versus the surface area matches. And if the water outlet is 38, there is no need for the water spray or to reduce the fan speed also. It means this is where our design dry cooling temperature is there. So here this portion is for the dry zone. And this is the adiabatic zone. So now let's say if the water temperature is more than 38 degrees centigrade. So what happens is, excuse me, the water temperature is like 45, 46 degrees centigrade. So what our spray water pump will start, and then it will bring the temperature to 38 degrees centigrade. So once that becomes 38 degrees centigrade, then it will further see if there is any scope of reducing the quantity of water or the quantity of air. In both cases, there is a beneficial, either we save water or we save energy, which is in the form of electricity. So this is I have shown how we can install adiabatic cooling tower in the existing power plant. See, this is a existing power plant which has been already explained. So what we do is we tap two lines, from here, and this is a three-way wall, and we close the cooling tower, and we install a adiabatic cooling system here. So the benefit is that this cooling tower works as a emergency if there is any problem in the system, or it acts as a reservoir for the makeup water for 20% water of the for the adiabatic system. So now to get the 20% of the water, we can either, I have written a lot of articles on this which has been already published in EA Water, and we can condense water, and like last sessions of this conference, many people were giving the technology where they can use a municipal water and treat it, and it can be stored here, which is already big sums are there. So we need not to disturb any kind of a river, any kind of natural resources. to be used for the cooling over here, So my slogan for adiabatic cooling towers is, see, this is suitable for all seasons and all reasons. All seasons means when our ambient goes lower, we save energy on the fans. When the ambient energy is equal to the approach temperature, so it still saves the water. When the ambient temperature goes higher, so it sprays the water and then it saves the water. Sorry, it saves the water as compared to the cooling tower, and it also saves the the fan power. This is for the all season. All reasons means that now every ambient temperatures are different, countries are different, and industries are different, like where sometimes we have a it's installed, the system is installed close to the sea coast. Sea coast, there is a lot of air breeze which is coming, and which contains a salt also, and if we condense the water on this side and we use a regular fence, so it will start corroding the fence over there. So we have to change the metallurgy of the cooling tower, because the expectation life of the cooling tower is minimum 10 to 15 years, and because of the environmental condition, it should not affect or erode the fence, and there is a constant power output, because we don't have to derate the power plant and reduce the steam. Power and water consumption as per the ambient and power production, and this is basically this is a system which works 8760 hours, without any disturbance, because whole system is automized with the VFDs and logic controls and everything, and then this is a compact in size. So basically this is a the present problem with the adiabatic cooling tower manufacturers, that they make small modular type cooling towers, which can cater to a small water quantities. Like for 1 megawatt, we need almost 150 to 200 cmh of water circulation. And even for 1 megawatt, companies offer either one cooler, two cooler, or three coolers. And it means if we have a a power plant of 630 megawatt, and if one cooler is catering, let's say to 2 megawatts, so there will be a 315 basically coolers will be there. And if one cooler is using almost all 5 fans, so there will be 1575 fans, 1575 fans. Whereas, I have designed adiabatic cooling towers, which will be catering to 10 megawatt each using only one fan. So 10 megawatt means if we have a 630 megawatt of a power plant, only 63 fans will be there, as compared to 1575 fans which a general industry is offering. And these are a very big size coolers. And the when we go for a higher and bigger diameter of fan, the there is the efficiency of the fan increases. Once the efficiency of the fan increases, there is a reduction in the power consumption. So for, let's say, for the 100 megawatt, so in our open cycle cooling tower, there is a water evaporation rate in an open cooling tower is 290 cmh. So whereas in adiabatic it is only 58 cmh, and this is per hour, and the power is 86.30 kilowatt, whereas there will be 300 kilowatt water requirement will be there. So if we see the water consumption in kgs, so this will be like 18 lakh 56,000 kg per year will be the water saving in a 100 megawatt power plant. So whereas the total extra power generated in the hour will be 213.70 kilowatt, extra power which will be required by using these adiabatic cooling system, which is only 0.21% of 100 megawatt. So it is less than one. This is only because of the reason that we are using a big size fans. So there is a comparison sheet where between the WTC, which is the wet type cooling tower, ACC, which is the air cooled condenser, and ACT, which is the adiabatic cooling tower. So for 300 megawatt, comparison. So our height requirement is 23 meters, for WTC. WTC length is about 130 meters, and width is about 130 meters, and then, for ACC, we require 41 meter as a height, length as 180 meter, 180 meter. And for ACT, which is adiabatic cooling tower, we only require 12.5, meter as a height, and length is 160 and width is 160, meter. So if we compare, what is the solution? So water and power required when compared to other systems. So water requirement in WTC is huge. ACC, we have a nil water requirement, and in ACT we need 20% of WTC, which we can, cover by condensing water or by using the municipal water. Power reduction at high temperature. There is a nil water power reduction because of the WTC. In the WTC, ACC, yes, and then ATC, no. Power consumption, the third one is power consumption, which is the least in WTC. ACC is very high, and ATC is moderate. Now, investment compared to all the system. In WTC, if we have to install 300 megawatt, it will cost about 75 crores, In ACC, the same system will cost 525 crores, which is the all system, complete with the, structure, fans, coils, steam duct, and vacuum system, everything, Whereas in this WTC, it is not only the cooler, but it is also the, water treatment plant, plus the ACT, the structure of the, this cooling tower also. And in ATC, ACT, we will require only 225 crore rupees, which is in between wet cooling tower and condenser, which is half the rate of a condenser. Because we don't have to do any modification, we don't require, any kind of additional structures or anything. It is only the coolers which has to be placed on the ground. And how power plants can recover this investment? So this is very important. So I have made a comparison of 4 type of, power plants. For 50 megawatt, so our, ACT will cost 375 crores. If we see the interest at 8%, so it comes to 451.19 crore. Power generation extra, investment, power generation million per kilowatt, means how much power generation will be there, and investment per kilowatt is 22.81. And with the, present cost of running of WTC, if we compare, so we have a investment cost of 14.81 paisa per kilowatt. Means that, if we want to convert a adiabatic cooling system from a wet type cooling tower, so we will have to, it will, if we want to recover that investment in 5 years, including interest, so we will be investing 14.81 paisa per kilowatt. Now there are two ways of doing it. One is either a request can be given to the government or the supply power purchaser that increase the rate to 14.81 paisa, like 14 paisa, and reduce the and till the this investment is recovered, or the power plants have to bear this kind of cost to save farmers. No, it depends on the decision of either government or the NGOs or the power producer to come close and work on this thing. So I have already published one article in EA Water June edition, in which all these technologies have been clearly explained, and I have also given an information that how farmers can earn 3,330 crore rupees per year. So at what like today we are these days we are already having some dialogues going on between the minimum price which FCI or government buys. So I took some data from FCI at that time, and what rate it is they are buying the maize, and what at what cost they are buying the wheat, and then sugar cane and other things. So I have made one analysis. So you can always go to the site and or go to CST site, where you can read my article which says save water, save farmers. So we as a industrialist or the engineers or the doctors have to think over it. And thanks very much for joining this presentation. So we'll go back. The session went well, Deepak, and I was audible.
Yes, sir, you were audible and the session went well. Mr. Pranav Sood has, even though the cost was discussed in the presentation, but Mr. Pranav Sood has raised a question. If India has to opt for such a solution, how much do you think the investment is required? So it is. I would request you to please reshare and talk about the cost also.
See, basically, thanks very much, Pranav, for asking this question. And as a thumb rule, which I have also mentioned in the one of the article, that see, to convert all the thermal power stations, which are present in India, the requirement is 1,20,000 crores. And this looks very, very big. But when we compare to the how much power it will generate, in 5 years we recover all the cost. So that's the thing. And
Okay. So I think that answers it. Uh, um, uh, for the audience, I would like to share that I have mentioned Dr. Sarah's contact details in the discussion or the discuss option. Request you to please take a note of it. In the end, I would like to thank Dr. Sehraji for giving us his valuable time. He was very busy today, but he got the time to share his wisdom, his presentation with us with such a unique solution also. Thank you so much, sir. And I would also like to thank the audience for joining this session, and also our virtual everything about water virtual conference and exhibition, and making it such a success. All the sessions have been highly anticipated and highly thank the audience for their contribution and continued support. And once again, thank you to uh, uh, Dr. Jagjit. By this, we end our session and program of Virtual Expo and Conference. See you again. We will be having such such kind of events for which you can visit eawater.com, magazine, and other offerings.
And
Thank you so much,
thanks,
everyone.
Deepak.
Saying goodbye.
Thanks, Deepak, and thanks very much, Deepak, and all EA Water team who had been, supporting my mission of saving the water. And let's all work together. And once these COVID things are finished, which are almost all on the verge of finishing, and we will grow again. We'll grow again and grow again. Thank you.